Okay,
That's
that works.
easy. That's
Great.
really easy to
Thank
do.
you.
You guys should move up.
Yeah, we should.
Why is my computer being so slow? Oh.
All right. Okay, I'll go work. You want to come back at 5 to help?
At 5:30 to help
5:30?
me
Yeah.
carry everything over, that would be great. All right. Okay. Something. Okay. Don't be shy, move up. Okay, welcome to the 4 o'clock workshop. It's called B Corporations Bringing Public Benefit into the Corporate Structure, and we're really fortunate to have with us Jim Armstrong, who's a local Madisonite, and he's the founder and creative director of Good for Business, which is itself a B Corporation. So thank you for joining us,
Thank
Jim.
you, Margaret. Thank you for being here. To be or not to be is the topic of the presentation today. We are a certified B Corporation, and I want to back a little bit and tell you how we emerged, evolved, and embraced B Corp status. Back in 1990, we were actually the communications marketing firm for Business Partnership for Peace, which was headquartered in Ithaca, New York. And if you look, you can't tell from there, but around the border of that ad are businesses like Ben & Jerry's, Sunfeather Soap. These were the first initial businesses stepping forward and framing their business as being socially responsible. And Business Partnership for Peace was the organization that they created in order to express this belief that business could be a force for good. This particular ad is talking about how at that time we were making a mistake by ignoring the third world, and that it's very important for American business to invest in the third world. We also created this message back in 1990 again, that giving $50 to Business Partnership for Peace could actually start a full-time business in the third world. Business Partnership for Peace was the forerunner to Business for Social Responsibility. They were folded into Business for Social Responsibility, and we were one of the charter members then of Business for Social Responsibility, which is an international collection of socially responsible, sustainable businesses. At that time, the businesses committed to BSR were the Ben & Jerry's of the world. BSR slowly evolved to where anybody could join BSR. So you went from an organization that was very grassroots in its social responsibility to one where everybody was around the table, which is a philosophy that I respect. But you started to have coffee breaks sponsored by Monsanto and dinners sponsored by Exxon. They were there. They were part of the conversation. But that is when the terms greenwashing and whitewashing started to emerge, where businesses were spinning social responsibility and sustainability. And so I stayed a member of BSR from its founding in '92 to probably 3 years ago, where a small business like mine was actually squeezed out of being a member because the dues went from $1,000 a year to $5,000 a year, which is a chunk for a small business to pay to be part of an organization. And it told me that the message was that this was more of a big players organization, and we didn't really need small business there. At the same time, the B Corp movement started. At the same time, Co-op America, which we were a member of too since its founding, became Green America. And this is a really grassroots organization. They must have 1,000 members, maybe more. There's not a real stringent certification process to be a Green America business. You answer a couple of questions and you get in. But if you go through the directory, they're all really pretty much good businesses. But the B Corp emerged. One of the founders of the movement was Jeffrey Hollander of 7 Generation. They make the cleaning products. And it was designed to address this issue of greenwashing and whitewashing. On July 26, 2010, we were certified as a B Corp. And I'm going to read to you what a B Corp actually is so I get it right here. B Corp certification is to sustainable business what fair trade certification is to coffee, or USDA certification, organic certification is to milk. A B Corporation is a company that is certified by B Lab, an independent third-party nonprofit organization, as meeting B Corporation standards to meet rigorous standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency. B Corporation standards measure a company's accountability, community involvement, treatment of employees and consumers, and environmental impact. The B certified company must pay a fee based on revenue for B Lab to assess whether the company meets its standards for certification. To hold certified B companies accountable, B Lab periodically conducts random audits. This was music to my ears when I heard about it, and we jumped into the certification process. Back then, that process online and via mail was probably a half-year process. And then there was an oral exam as well, where you were interviewed by 2 people at B Corp to answer questions more deeply. And then they'd review all that data, and if you scored 80 points or higher, you became a B Corp. And we scored, in 2010, 104 points.
Jim? So you don't have to be in a state that allows B Corps in order to be able to come?
No, you don't have to be a B Corp. I'm going to get to that.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay.
And that's a big part of the movement now.
Great.
And we can talk about that a little bit. So at the time when we were certified in 2010, there were 350 B Corps. Today I went to the website, there are now 794 B corporations in 27 countries, covering 60 industries with one unifying goal: to redefine success in business. If you go to the home page of the B Corp, you'll see that this statement: B Corp use the power of business to solve social and environmental problems. So it actually is in your face with business having this activist presence. It's not layered or hidden beneath anything. It's right there in front of you. So when we were certified, we received the Declaration of Interdependence. We envision a new sector of the economy which harnesses the power of private enterprise to create public benefit. This sector is comprised of a new type of corporation, the B Corporation, which is purpose-driven and creates benefit for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. As members of this emerging sector and as entrepreneurs and investors in B corporations, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that we must change we seek in the world, that all business ought to be conducted as if people and place mattered, that through their products, practices, and profits, businesses should aspire to do no harm and benefit all. To do so requires that we act with the understanding that we are each dependent upon another and thus responsible for each other and future generations. And this kind of language has always been part of good for businesses, values, and so it just speaks to us. And then this is what you'll see when you go online and take the impact assessment. The impact assessment is actually free, and there's some 10,000 businesses that have actually taken the assessment and are using it. The 798 actually are the ones who stepped forward and paid to be certified. For a business like ours, which is a small business, it costs $500 to be certified. But
And that's good.
Yep. This was our score this year. We were actually audited 2 years later in 2012, and we actually scored higher. And I thought we'd score lower. In fact, I was nervous that we'd be certified because they actually made the standards a lot tougher. They didn't soften them. They actually became much more stringent and much more deep. And I was getting a little worried that we weren't going to make the cut. That'd be embarrassing. But we did better. So if you want to go through the impact, you'll actually get a report like this, and it'll go into greater detail about what you're doing in each of those areas. So it's this certification thing that really spoke to me, that you could actually go on and see the proof. The other thing is that there's this legal process that you have to go through as well. You actually have to change your articles of incorporation to be a B Corp. And that's putting it in paper as a legal entity, that you're going to do certain things to abide by B Corp status. Fortunately, I'm not an attorney. They give you language that you can then pass on to your business attorney to put into your articles of incorporation. The key is this area that I've highlighted here, which actually tells you that you're going to start making decisions that are on behalf of the community, the environment, your customers, and your culture. That is part of your corporate charter, which BSR doesn't do, Green America doesn't do, business partnership. I don't know anybody else who's doing this. So you get involved with this great community. These are some of the businesses that are part of the 794 who are B Corps. Ben & Jerry's is there. Patagonia just joined about 8 months ago. And with their joining, and I'll talk about this more, California became a state that actually recognizes B Corps as a legal entity. We'll get to that. So there's some great, it's a great community to be part of. You can see how it's grown since 2008. They give you all these opportunities to get benefit from being a B Corp. You can save money and access services of other B Corps. They've done research on millennials, that over 50% of the millennials entering the market want to work for a place that stands for something and adds meaning. And you can, they're really careful too about how you interact with B Corp members. You actually have to request ahead of time to contact a B Corp member, so that you're not just becoming a B Corp, paying your $500 and getting this list of all these B Corp members and then selling to them constantly. It takes a good week to actually be honored with an introduction to one B Corp at a time. So it's really good. So you're not being attacked with a barrage of sales stuff coming through because of your B Corp status. And it actually has, at least in our case, if I'm traveling and I look at the B Corps in an area, I can pick up the phone and call them and say, B Corp, are you interested in meeting? And they'll probably have a meeting. You know, if you're right there, they give you the privilege of meeting face to face, but you can't do a lot of email. You can't do any email. And they actually have created raising the bar with even B Corps. So you just don't become a B Corp and feel like you've arrived. You don't need to do any more work. Along with the audit, they have these programs pushing you to be the best at what you are in certain categories, whether it's the environment or building culture or community involvement. And they provide all these opportunities to be an activist in business. It's a really vibrant, engaged website. And this is news getting back to legislation about states passing B Corp status. Delaware recently recognized B Corps as being a legal entity.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Would you agree with that, underneath there, it says Delaware signals seismic shift? Does it
The reason they're saying that,
have that?
I just found my notes here. The reason they're saying that is that on July 17, 2013, Delaware became the 19th straight state, plus the District of Columbia, to enact benefit corporate legislation. But it's home to the most venture-backed businesses, 50% of all publicly traded companies, and 64% of the Fortune 500. It is the most important state for businesses that seek to access venture capital, private equity, and public capital markets. The path is now clear to scale business as a force for good.
So it is, in a sense, right?
So in recognition of this historic moment, on August 1st, 2013, more than 600 businesses signed an open letter inviting their peers to join the movement to redefine success in business. Can I just take a minute and read this letter? It's pretty short, and if you're finding it long, say stop. This is painful. Today is a historic day with Governor Jack Markell welcoming the first companies to register as Delaware benefit corporations. We celebrate a new freedom to build businesses with a higher purpose than simply maximizing profit. We are part of a growing movement of business leaders that see this as a big market opportunity because a large and increasing number of people want to support a better way to do business, better for our workers, better for our communities, better for our environment. Until recently, corporate law has not recognized the legitimacy of any corporate purpose other than maximizing profits. That old conception of the role of business in society is at best limiting and at worst destructive. Delaware is the 19th state plus DC to enact the benefit corporation legislation, but the most important state for businesses that seek access to venture capital, private equity, and public capital markets. By serving a higher purpose and by meeting higher standards of transparency and accountability, we build our most important asset, trust. This trust enables us to attract the best talent and turn customers into evangelists, helping us make money and make a difference. There are lots of ways to be part of this. Put your higher purpose into practice and compare and improve your social and environmental performance by using the free educational tool like the impact assessment. Bake your purpose into legal DNA of your business and help ensure it remains central as you scale, bring in outside capital, plan succession, or even sell by registering as a benefit corporation. And be recognized as a leader of this new economy by becoming a certified B Corp. So, you can see the map. The states in red are the ones that currently recognize B Corps as legal. Anybody from Wisconsin in here? We're not.
But Maryland is.
Maryland is, and we're actually relocating. We've been in Madison for 14 years, and 10 years before that. This is just the personal side. My wife's family is back in the Finger Lakes area, so we're going to move back there so she can spend time with her parents and getting older. And I think, and New York, you can see, has recognized it, so that's going to feel good. But we're close to Ithaca, New York, and Ithaca, New York has 6 B Corps. And up until last month, we were the only B Corp in the state of Wisconsin. And I think Next Generation Consulting here in Madison was certified as a B Corp about a month ago.
Is that Rebecca Ryan?
Ryan,
Yeah,
yeah.
she spoke here on
They're great.
investing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like class. But it's baffling, especially in a city like Madison, why B Corps can't get more traction. And maybe it's because we currently don't have the government in place to support it.
What is the importance of state recognition of B Corp status?
You can start making decisions that aren't driven by profit alone, a corporation by law.
Right, but but how does that turn on state legislation rather than a membership in a certification?
I'm sorry.
But if you can do it without a state, why do you need the state to pass a law that recognizes it? You can become a B Corp without the state law.
Because I think it's going to end up where B Corps will start getting tax benefits for being a...
Okay, but there currently is no specific,
Very.
because it's a movement among business,
Right.
not a legal process.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But I know when California passed the legalization, the observation of B Corps are legal entity, They both had the CEO of Patagonia and Jerry Brown at the press conference talking about how important this was for businesses. It's probably more symbolic, but it's this legal part of it that really makes it real, at least in my little mind.
I'd like to get a better understanding of what it means exactly to be a B Corp corporation. And perhaps you could enlighten me in that regard as to how one gets a high score on governance, for example, that questionnaire that we were talking about before.
Well, I can't remember all the questions, but I think there are about 120 questions. And in terms of governments, do you have open records? Are you democratic in how you run? And we're small, so we don't have stockholders or anything like that.
You don't have a board of directors.
There are 3 of us, which are actually employees.
You want a board of directors?
Yes. So I probably can't speak well to that. And probably governance was the area where we scored the most because we're so small, we haven't invested a lot in governance. In fact, I think that was where we scored governance. We just didn't have any. But in terms of commitment to the local economy, we scored really high because we make sure that all of our vendors are local vendors. And we also try to seek out vendors who are doing work in underserved pockets of our community. Our retirement program is Social K, which I encourage you to check out. It's a socially responsible stream, like a mutual fund retirement program, but we actually said we want our stuff screened 100%, because most socially responsible stuff, they go 80%, but they'll say, you gotta have that 20% old school stuff. We said, no, 100%, and they did that for us. We scored high in that regard. And then community involvement, we have a really open volunteer program, and then we do a ton of work for nonprofits. But the governance thing, I would maybe seek out a larger business and check that out.
Jim, can I ask you just to speak a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
This is an interesting quote from Esquire. B Corps might turn out to be like civil rights for blacks or voting rights for women. Centric, unpopular ideas that could probably change the world. I don't think it's that, but that was interesting. Maybe it will be. If you want to learn more about B Corps, B Labs are in Pennsylvania, New York, San Francisco, North Carolina, and then the website. And then I'll leave you with my email address if you have some questions after this. But I wanted to open it up more for questions like the one you didn't answer very well there.
I have another question.
Sure.
You say that corporations are legally responsible to create maximum profit for investors without regard to impact on people or the planet. Now, legal responsibility is a very heavy responsibility. Can you tell me where this comes from? Is it a legal decision somewhere, or?
You mean the way most corporations stand now?
Yeah, what is the legal basis for this responsibility to create maximum profit for investors without regard to anything else? What is the legal precedent for that?
I don't know. In fact, I just have scratched my head from day one of my corporation businesses. That was their primary duty. I'm not a business person. But I think there's a book, The Divine Right of Capitalism, by Margaret. I read that in 1989, and she pointed out that the major flaw to our economic system is that people, if you look on your financial report that your accountants put together for business, people are a liability. And the system will not change until people are put up into the asset category. And that's just the way the economic model is built. And it would be great if we could change that.
I wanted to make one comment about that. When my Navy recruited my son for reserve, they count their liabilities, and him having the child was a liability. So that affirms that. But my question is, Is that the legal structure for having a cooperative?
A cooperative, no.
No, no. What is the B Corporation then?
Uh,
I'm sorry, maybe I came late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a movement that started in 2008 to offset greenwashing and whitewashing. So businesses have to be certified to go through rigorous auditing and questioning about how they're behaving with their culture, their community, the environment. And then you get scored, and if you score at a certain level, you can be certified as a B Corp. To be certified, you actually have to change your articles of incorporation to say that you will act and behave based on not just maximizing profit, but making decisions that will benefit shareholders, stakeholders versus just shareholders. So what's good for the environment, what's good for your community, what's good for the people who work there. And that's what a B Corp is. There are about 794 B Corps now in 60 different countries. It's grown that much in just 5 years. Other questions? I know we're taking up our full 90 minutes. But
The, what is the profile of typical B Corp abroad, outside the United States?
It's a good question. I haven't checked that out.
Uh-huh.
I haven't. That's a good question.
Because actually I come from São Paulo, Brazil, and
Okay.
your terms greenwashing and whitewashing, there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the sort of false sustainability that's permeated things, and so that's interesting.
I've given talks on social responsibility, and I'll use the model of this company that was leading, won all the awards for environmental actions, women in the workplace actions, diversity in the workplace actions. They even won Best Place to Work, innovation awards for 6 years running, and it was Enron. And it was the periphery that was doing these things, but at the core, it was, well, you know what, at the core. And that's, you can't do that with a B Corp. At the core, the CEO and the president have to do this, and that makes a difference.
This isn't that interesting, it's just that I'm remembering a book I used to carry around with me that I don't know is published anymore. It used to be called Shopping for a Better World. And you would look up the company, well, whatever companies they had at this point. And I think it might have been the predecessor to Green America, that might have been the people that put that
Okay.
out. But you'd quickly open it up, and then you'd have these symbols that stood for race relation, how many had 10% or more race on their board, 25% or more women on their board, and how their early energy stuff. We talk a lot more about green stuff now than when this book came out, but it was an early precursor to that, and a couple of other measures. And then you could kind of decide when you were shopping if you want. Now, of course, the cell phone and all these new boycotts and all that are probably doing that. But
Yeah.
anyway, it really doesn't. It's not a question. I don't know. Something you just said made me think of it, and I thought people here might remember that publication. It's kind of a handy thing. If you don't have a smartphone, it's kind of cool that you could quickly look at least some of that. That must have been an amazing, a terrible amount of work back then to create that book.
Yeah.
There were hundreds.
Voices in the wilderness.
It really was.
And there's still a feeling of that. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, you asked about larger corporations. That's the problem with this movement at this point. And we've got Patagonia, we've got seventh generation of a few of the big ones, but it's still mostly small companies. But that's where movements begin.
Right.
We have no choice. I mean, it has to make a shift. Marjorie Kelly was the author. Divine Medicare. She ran Business Ethics magazine for a few
I know
years.
her work, yeah.
She's great.
She is great, yeah.
Terrific. Other questions on B Corps?
I just want to say that this notion that there's a legal requirement that corporations behave badly is something that corporations often use to justify their behavior. They say, we have to behave badly because the law makes us behave badly. There's a law, and the law they usually cite is a Supreme Court decision, Michigan, State of Michigan, 1919, called Dodge v. Ford.
Yeah.
The two Dodge brothers sued Henry Ford because they thought that after he made all these billions in the previous year, because he had the assembly line going, he had 50% of the car market, they deserved more money as stockholders than he gave them. So they sued him. And it went through a couple of steps, but the bottom line is that finally, in 1919, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled on this case, and they said, yes, Mr. Ford, you owe your stockholders, the Dodge brothers, $19.2 million more than you gave them. And it's widely thought that that's the case that established this principle, that corporations exist to maximize shareholder profit and nothing more. But if you look at it, it turns out that that is not how they decided the case. They decided the case on a principle that has to do with fairness in your treatment of minority stockholders. There's a well-established corporate principle whereby you cannot screw your minority shareholders just because you got the numbers. You have to treat them fairly. And on that basis, the judge said, yes, you owe them $19.2 million more. It was not decided on the basis that this principle exists, that you were supposed to maximize shareholder profit and nothing else.
But it gets
What happened was that the judge who wrote the decision, in his written decision, his opinion, mentioned that in passing, that he thought that corporations should exist only to maximize shareholder profit. It was just a remark in passing. It had no legal basis whatsoever, no legal weight. The case was not decided on that basis. But corporate lawyers have since looked at that remark in passing and said, oh, we can parlay this into an excuse for behaving badly. The law makes us do it. There is no such law. Never has been, probably never will be.
Great.
Now, you live in Ithaca.
Not yet.
Well, you're going to move to Ithaca. When you go to Ithaca, look up a professor of law called Lynn Stout. Lynn Stout wrote a book on this, published last year, on this very thing that I've just been talking about.
Really?
Yes.
That would be great.
You should talk to her, read her book. You can find her on YouTube discussing this point. It's a complete fallacy. There's no law that makes corporations behave badly.
Similar to corporate personhood. It was
Yeah,
a
that's
note
the other
of the
thing. That's
judge's
another
thing, and also the notion of affirmative action. If I remember correctly, President Kennedy mentioned it in passing also in a speech. It was just I think we should take affirmative action, and it said, all of a sudden, I mean, it didn't have the weight of law, so it's not exactly the same, but it's an interesting idea of how these notes or these other commentaries became conveniently, and maybe that's either side of things too.
Yeah, a passing remark in the Santa Clara case in 1886 gave corporations, everybody thinks, corporate personhood.
That's right, yeah.
But it was not a part of the decision. Just a passing remark that the court reporter put into a headnote.
To teach, I'm sorry.
Okay.
To teach that principle, everybody here probably knows that from being moved to a men affiliated conference, but in Columbus, we have a couple of people, 3 people who perform a small play written by I think he might have been a law professor in Indiana, I'm not 100% sure of that. And you can see it on YouTube. It's about the judge.
That's me, I'm the author.
Oh, are you the
Oh, really?
author?
I'm Jim
I'm sorry.
Allen.
Well, that's so funny.
Wow.
So we've been seeing.
You know this stuff backwards and forwards. Why are you asking me?
Well, the beauty of that, I just saw it perform for the first time. So great. I'm glad to be able to tell you, if you don't know, that at least in Ohio, it's probably getting performed about three times a month at least in Central Ohio.
I didn't know that.
So we have lots of people who are at least becoming aware of this whole idea that even the idea that something in a side note can happen, let alone maybe a second time or more that's happened. Those are the only 3 times I've ever heard of it, or at least 3 I just mentioned.
Hey, I'm glad I came today.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too.
No, that's great. It's very nice to meet you. And
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for writing it. I'm sorry, are you a law professor from Indiana?
No,
I have everything wrong.
No, I was a psychology professor in Indiana for 30 years.
Oh, Indiana. Well, so I had one thing right.
But I've retired, but for the last 8 years, I've been studying Supreme Court. And I find that if you study anything for 8 years, you learn a hell of a lot about it.
Yeah, no, that's right.
And a lot of people ask me, am I a lawyer? No, but I know a lot about
Yeah,
that
no.
stuff because of that.
I do death penalty work, and I feel like I know that part of the law very well myself, and I'm not really a lawyer. That's interesting.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah, I love that, yeah, that's so funny, I was like, Indiana, law, that's so funny,
You're
it's
on
you.
board, right.
I love that.
Yeah, the business world, people point to Friedman's remark that if there's some business.
He picked it up too. Milton Friedman, published in the New York Times, op-ed, yeah, that very statement.
Excuse me. I want to know what is between B Corp and a regular corporation. What is,
Well, it's just what we're talking about
Yeah.
here, that the most corporations, their charter is to maximize profit for shareholders.
but the regular corporation does the same thing?
Not a B Corp.
No, B
No.
Corp is a socially responsible corporation.
Oh, is
That-
it?
Yeah, he went through the whole kind of
B is for benefit.
benefit,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so it's,
Okay. So is that like a triple bottom line?
You go.
Corporations
Yeah.
like Ben
It's
and
another way of
Jerry?
addressing that, yeah. Put people, planet, profit. Yeah.
So what are some of the examples of the B Corporation, like Ben and Jerry and
Yeah.
things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
they were one of the early, yeah. So do you know if any of the states that have passed laws for benefit corps, are they giving special treatment to B Corps or?
I think Maryland is.
Okay,
Are you from Maryland?
I am from Maryland.
They were one of the first states to do it.
Yeah, I know Jamie Raskin was the
I
one.
think they're trying to find ways to, like you're asking, well, what's the point then? It's just on paper, this little thing instead of the result of it. So, and I've written stuff here in Wisconsin that didn't get anywhere, that our economic policy should be, and I thought it'd be a great idea that Wisconsin could be the socially responsible state. So we
Ooh.
create all these benefits and incentives for socially responsible businesses to come here, because all the other 49 states are saying the same old economic development thing. You know.
Right.
But if one state stepped forward and said, if you're socially responsible, this is the place for you. I hope someday that gets some traction everywhere, but it just
Are there
we'll
any
have to.
states or cities that have a decent concentration of B Corp that could kind of show? It would be great to take two cities, one that had a good number of B Corps and one didn't, and look at the social and environmental and economic impacts and see if you could.
Well, California's got a chunk of B Corps, primarily in the Bay Area.
So do you know of anybody that's doing any of that kind of
No, I don't.
examination?
It's a good question.
The data from the companies available on the B Corp site or the?
Yep. You can go to each company, how it had my score,
Yeah,
and see the score of every company.
the score, right, okay. So you could do a study like that,
Right.
yeah.
I've
Well,
tried to do that.
Score of the company, I think that he means the score of the company, I think you mean other, like you
Right.
find out things, like you'd have to determine what the indicators are you'd like to look at,
Right,
and then you
yeah.
probably have to go look at
And
them,
the
like,
annual
and then a
reports,
time
yeah.
frame.
What's the
How long
poverty
the B
level of
Corps-
minorities, are they in
Yeah,
the workplace?
So you can find the questions that you're asked to just.
Yeah, you can take the
See the
assessment for
questions.
free, yeah. That's
Yeah.
great,
Yeah, like we talked about, Jackie Dunn talked about the city of Curitiba in Brazil, where they started the cleaning up the trash for bus tokens and how that raised their standard of living and made them win an award for being the most like ecologically sensitive city or sound city or whatever. I wonder if you could do that at some point with the B Corp, cities that have a lot of B Corp, and see, you know, the overall impact, because that would be a huge selling point if, you know, I
It
would
is.
think.
but
Well, to,
Chicago probably has a dozen B Corps now,
uh,
but I think it's still, Boston has a lot, New York, just by mass has a lot, but it's
Mhm.
mostly California that's pushing it. Even Colorado may have, not as many as I thought they would, Boulder, Fort Collins. but-
I think Boulder, I'm from Colorado, is in transition. They want to bypass people, planet, and profit, you know, and the triple bottom line, and going to the profit. You
Really?
know, like sharing profits, which is
Oh.
cooperative.
Okay,
Sharing
yeah.
profits, people and planet. We want to get one step further because we have lots of unemployment, and Occupy is looking into the shared profit, how we can create jobs for ourselves, that we don't get fired, we don't lose our jobs, and also there's a huge push from cooperative organizations to teach union to also switch, because the union is not very strong in Colorado. You know, a lot of, you know, they are very polarized in Colorado. In election times, it shows if you're blue or red, you know, and it's really pushed towards that. So I think when we talk to the right wing and we talk about cooperative, they hate unions, but when we say cooperative, we become all owners and we're all gonna. They actually stop. I don't know if they're agreeing or not, but they stop talking bad about things, you know. So they're kind of attracted to that model too.
We just did the communications work for the CUNA, the Credit Union National Association. And right now there are 97 million Americans who do have financial at credit unions. And that's, you own it. And that's a great model of how a co-op can actually, if they can, and they have a movement called Unite for Good, the co-op movement, and it represents this whole sense of what you're talking about, a sense of ownership. But they're now, there's a movement in Washington to tax credit unions.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't.
There's the movement in Washington to tax credit unions.
By the bank, the
yes.
bankers,
Yes.
Yeah.
trade
That's all
group,
we
yes.
need.
Yeah.
How can I buy one of your products? Can I buy one of your products? What do you produce?
We do marketing and communications.
You produce marketing and communications services.
Yep.
Okay.
And we trademark the lines that businesses aren't brands to be built, but causes to be believed in. So we engage clients by finding what their purpose is first. And if it's a noble purpose, we'll work with them. But it's just, we're here to make a lot of money. We won't work.
I see.
So then we help tell their story based on purpose-led communications, which is all authentic and transparent. There's no spinning or anything to it. It's driven internally as well. But to be purpose-led, you have to make sure that your culture is living and breathing that purpose. So that's what we don't make coffee.
I don't make widgets.
No, we don't.
So
Have a book out if you want to read that out.
All right.
now I understand from talking to our B Corp in Maryland that a certain proportion of the work that you do or the profits that you make need to be reinvested in the community? Is
Not
that?
necessarily your profits, but your operations are always, you're thinking, how will this impact my community?
So it's not that a portion of your, okay, so there's no commitment to
There's no
return?
financial commitment
Okay,
that we would give 10% of our profits to a nonprofit or something like that. That's not written into it, no.
Because it could be.
It could be,
I
you
mean,
could do that.
Nothing would prohibit that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Yeah, and there are businesses that do that. We probably give away a lot more than that in the work we do for the community, but we just don't keep track. In fact, I don't want to see.
No, you did, yeah, you would. You would. You really would. You can't be doing all this and probably then not really like what you saw. You like what you saw. Yeah.
Are you also a member of American Sustainable
business?
Business Association? Because those are the socially responsible corporation under that, you know, I mean, have you heard of them?
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
It's, David Broadwin,
yeah.
I thought it was ASBE.
Yeah, ASBB is
BE,
American
Sustainable
Sustainable
Business.
Business Association.
I don't think it's.
And one of my friends is a president of it, and, you know, like companies like Ben and Jerry's and all these socially responsible, it's like a chamber of commerce for the, for the socially
That's
responsible.
pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. And actually, the president of that organization lives in Colorado, and now we are pushing him to advertise more about cooperatives.
Good.
You could help with that.
Yeah.
ASBC, it's the American Sustainable Business Council.
Business Council, I'm sorry.
American Sustainable
Thanks for
Business
doing that, because I'm a lousy salesperson.
I was just going to follow up on something you said. It's just a brief one. I'm vaguely having a memory that George Bush and cronies were talking about this being an ownership, or wanting, the vision was an ownership society. So maybe we would find many a friend in what we might think of as the other side. I don't really know. I don't tend to talk like that exactly, but it kind of makes sense to me. And they meant, I think, something possibly different from that, but it's not completely, I mean, the words have the same meaning. I mean, how, the intention, all that. So we might be able to broaden our.
Marjorie Kelly has in her new book, it's called The Ownership Economy.
Oh, okay.
She talks about if we're going to make change, it has to be this cooperative model. Forget the, I'm not jumped to a different
I feel like I've been living on some other planet. Talking about any of these things. It's fantastic. That again.
It must be kind of this, I don't know, subconscious sense of this ownership thing, because my majority of my initial work was in health reform and advocating for single-payer health system. And so I'm an advisor to the Board of Physicians for National Health Program. And at our last board meeting, all of a sudden everybody was talking about, we don't want to talk about single-payer anymore. We want to talk about owning our system, our health system, taking our health system
Yes.
back. And it was a real kind of shift. And it feels like everywhere I go, I'm hearing the same kind of shift, I think, which makes a lot of sense. We've all been owned and, you know, screwed by the large corporations for so long. And it would be natural for people to start flipping around and feeling like they want some control over their lives.
Really, in healthcare, is that taught too as well?
That's, you know, yes, we need to reframe this. Well, and particularly from a physician perspective, because I mean, I left practice a few years ago after practicing for 15 years. But the people I know that are still in practice say that and everybody's being bought up. If you work for a hospital, they make no bones about the fact that you are just a widget, you are just a cog in their wheel, and don't get any sense as a physician that you have any power or, it's really interesting. They've just stolen the profession from physicians.
Yeah, people never say they want to grow up to be a hospital administrator. They say they want to grow up to be a doctor. But I guess part of the thing is about power and all that. But it's so interesting how it's, sort of like some of those shifts that have been.
I found it very, very easy to talk to Republicans now. It used to, I used to have a very heated conversation in the past. But now, the minute I start talking about cooperative and ownership and everyone, empowering everyone to have that ownership, seems like I get their attention and they calm down and they want to know more about it, that's why I feel like, and sometimes then they say, I hate union. I said, well, if we didn't have corporation capitalistic market, we wouldn't have union. Union.
Yeah, you're right.
So, but let's just build things together and let's make it cooperative. And if everybody has ownership to it, they work to the max and they earn a living and they don't have to be fired or laid off because the jobs goes elsewhere,
Mhm.
So.